Mr. Hosley, on the subject of funding, as a possible solution, currently the most viable option for choice in Delaware would be the EESA. Make an argument why taxpayers should support a bill that potentially offers the benefit to a segment of the population that may not share in any additional tax burden.
Yeah, well, let's be clear, it's not an additional tax burden. The money is already being allocated for your student, so it's not additional. It really comes down to a matter of who do you want to have to control the decision on the education experience that your child is going to have. There's been a lot of discussion here when we talk about safe schools. One of the primary things that I hear when I talk to students is say, well, you want to go to this charter school, or you want to go, why do you want to go there? Learning is respected, and it is safe. I hear that constantly, the two of them. Public schools have a problem. I mean, I think we all agree that they do have a problem. We would all like to have them, those problems solved. But like Councilman Street and I have been around for a while, and I've been in manufacturing for 40 years, and quite honestly, I don't see them improving. And if we say we're going to fix them, then let's do something now to fix them, and let's not lose another 5,000 or 7,000 students to dropouts. Because the studies are there with regard to the dropout rates, the crime rates. 88% of the dropouts cannot read at grade, third grade. 2/3 of the prison population doesn't have a high school degree. Now that's products of today's system. Okay? Now we happen to believe that the education savings account will help resolve that, and the cost of failure, the taxpayer has to stop paying for that cost of failure. If you use the total cost, including the cost for capital, the cost for the Department of Education, so forth, if that student drops out in the 9th grade, the taxpayer is paying $153,000. To turn around and put it for $30,000 or $33,000 a year, it doesn't make sense to do that. So it's the same tax dollars. It's who's going to decide the use of that tax dollars for your child. And we say that you, the parent, are the most important decider on what that is, working together with the teachers. There's only two value adders in the education system, the teacher and the parent. And then there's the enablers, the Department of Education and the principal. All the rest needs to be working at that local community involved to make sure that we're getting the best education experience for all children, regardless of income level, because if you have the income level, you can decide to go to a private school. And it's happening every day here in Delaware.
Thank you. Councilman Street, please describe briefly your 2011 June findings on racial composition, charter, and public schools in the city of Wilmington, and any proposals and/or recommendations for educational reform that were proposed.
Well, I submitted that report to the governor, and it said what it said. It said that the inner city schools were predominantly black, resegregated, and underperforming. It said that the predominantly black charter schools were underperforming, and it said that the predominance of suburban schools were doing well, and the predominance of majority charter schools were doing extremely well. But that does not make me a proponent of what you're trying to sell tonight in terms of who gets the money, because what basically you're saying is the position that's trying to be sold is that we can do a better job with the same money. I don't think so. And I say that to say the answer is money, and it's more money. We said, and it's attached to the plan, the Neighborhood School Act, and it was said again to the recommendations and from the Education Task Force, that you resegregated the schools, you put high poverty, at-risk children in the same building with no additional resources. You've done it in the public schools, you've done it in the charter schools. In the absence of those resources, those schools are destined for failure. So you're going to have to put forward the additional resources, or we're going to have to do what you didn't want to do and do this all over again. The critical question is, what is the solution? And if you look at the public schools, there are two primary problems that folks don't want to talk about. Number one, the violence within the city of Wilmington, which has the highest crime rate per capita, et cetera, we're all well aware of. Well, what are the consequences? When children are having to dodge bulls at bus stops, you want them to go to school and perform. The likelihood of that happening is slim to none. When they're scared to get off the bus and the drug dealers are meeting them at the bus, that's not their fault, and that's not the school system's fault. That's our fault. And we have to do something about that.
That's right.
But then we have to look at what we've done. I've said repeatedly for the last 10 years, the Neighborhood School Act, the Charter School Act, the Choice School Act collectively have caused desegregation, and we're developing these charter schools and these so-called choice options, and some of the charter schools are doing excellent work. And all of which is being done off the backs of the children who remain in the regular public schools. So you can take some here and you can take some there, but the majority are going to have to remain, and who's going to take care of them while y'all are saving everybody else in charter and choice? Our responsibility is to the masses of the children that don't have parents to speak up and speak out for them, that need the resources the most, and here's the best example I can give you to drive the point home. 5,000 children have left Christina School District within the last, say, 5 to 10 years. The consequence of that is $50 million per year, each and every year. Well, what goes missing? Additional library books, librarians, guidance counselors, athletic directors, coaches, athletic programs, band, choir, art. Those are the things that have to be sacrificed once the money leaves the regular district and goes to these charter and choice situations. And then you've got these folks with good intentions who say that we can educate children, high poverty, high risk, for $10,000 per child. We can do a better job than the local school district who's getting $15,000. Do the math. It doesn't work. And they will love them to death till they do something wrong. But they will have collected the $10,000, and you little bad child, be gone.
That's right. Are we being informed? Yes, no? Are we being informed?
Yes.
Now, these last few questions.
Not really.
Say again?
Not really.
No, you haven't learned anything?
But we're not being completely informed.
That's
It's
good.
something that
We just
we
get it.
homework.
Yeah,
We didn't get it all right.
a lot of it.
All right, open panel questions. Raise your hand if you want to take it. Can you give one pro and one con as to why you think the current education system is or isn't working, and the same why education choice and why educational choice as it is implemented in other states would or would not work? Mr.
Well,
Strong, the only one that raised his
nobody in this room, I think, has been any more critical and more harsh on the school system than I have. For a purpose and for a reason. If you look at the front page of the paper today, I think we're going to be able to take what's transpired in Christina and make some progress, not only in Christina, but across the board in other districts, because, and throughout the state. We need to repeal a lot of House Bill 85. Now, I raise all these things and say all these things about the school district, and that's what's quoted public. But there's no way in the world I'm going to look at Newcastle County and our schools here and take the risk on going down the path some folks wants to go of turning them into Chester, Baltimore, and Philadelphia, where in Baltimore, Edison's taking over, Chester, Edison's taking over, Philadelphia remains broke, has to go begging to Harrisburg each and every year. and all kinds of problems within the schools that we don't have. So in spite of my criticisms of the district, I'm a product of the Wilmington Public Schools, I'm a proud product, and for those kids who really, really want it, and for those parents who really know how to pursue it, education is there. And in spite of all the negative, we graduate and send to college each and every year children from the city of Wilmington, children from throughout Newcastle County from all walks of life. The other things, the other criticisms that I have made, they need to be made, they're accurate, and we need to make some changes, but it's not the best school system in the world, but it sure as hell is not the worst school system in the world.
Okay, what's critical about choice is that it's informed. Informed choice.
Speak up.
Informed choice, that you are informed. And there needs to be more transparency. I'm about solutions, because that's what we're supposed to be focusing on. There needs to be more upfront, easily accessible information. So you can go and look at the school. You can go check out a charter school, you can go check out a traditional public school and find out what is happening. It is not that easy right now. In contrast, I looked at California, Los Angeles. You can just go and Google the school, and it'll tell you page after page after page everything about that school. The number of years the teachers have in their professional background, funding, discipline, grades, performance in state tests. It's much more complicated. So again, choice is good, only if it's informed.
I'm speaking as a consumer, and I'm saying that if I and you are purchasing something and we didn't get what we paid for, would we keep going back and buying more of it?
No, we wouldn't.
I mean, the bottom line of this is that a handful of people in our state, and in the state, are leaders that are making decisions for us, that are why we're here tonight. So if we don't look at doing something else with the money that you're paying, that I'm paying as consumers, we will continue to get the dismal results. As a business owner, I would never choose to keep doing what wasn't working because I would be out of business. We have the highest, as you mentioned earlier, per capita rate of violence in the city of Wilmington, directly tied to educational results, because the results are there, statistics are there. We understand that education and crime rates are directly proportional. We have a problem in Wilmington. We have a problem with our results of education in Delaware. And despite the idea, toward your point, Doctor, having the information, making the information consumer friendly, which by the way we can do if we are operating with leaders that can make that information consumer friendly, so that you and I can look at the information and put the money in our pockets and make the choice for our child, and to connect to parents so that they can be better informed. As leaders, we can figure out ways that our best practices being done in other states. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Other states are doing well in the areas of education, have lower crime rates to show for it. We're not reinventing anything here. We can bring in those kinds of practices, such as in the state of Florida. I know there are some outstanding results with what parents are getting for a much lower dollar, consumers are getting for a much lower dollar per outcome, and incorporate those. You do need good leaders. You do need to elect, it's at the ballot box, yes, you use that leverage, and we make that information consumer friendly so that we can have a better outcome. This does not have to be kept in the same convoluted system that we are experiencing right now. We have a lot more power than we know or that we are exercising, and the outcome will be directly proportional to the power that we exercise as consumers. We're not getting that for our children. We're not educating the leaders of tomorrow. And our state and our cities are paying for that. We don't have to make that choice. It's our choice too.
Absolutely.
One pro, one con. I'm probably a bit of a conspiracy theorist when you mention education and incarceration, because I really believe the tragic results we're talking about are not by accident, they are in fact by design. I just believe because I'm a product of Wilmington schools and I'm a product of the projects. And my problem with your information is that Mr. J. Edgar Hoover did a fantastic job in educating the people in America through COINTELPRO how to give disinformation rather than accurate information. We did not receive accurate information with respect to Moyer Academy. We did not receive the whole story, and so we acted on misinformation, and through the miseducation of our people, we continue to be in a slave relationship. We don't want that relationship anymore. We want one built on just and equitable terms that respects our intelligence, and we can determine what information is good and what information is bad. Now, with respect to what is calm or bad, the front page of the newspaper tells us something today that we cannot miss. Our leaders are going to come forward and tell us that they're going to fix a problem they created. Ms. Loretta Morvito and I attended over 85 suspension hearings at Christina's school, in which the lawyers told myself and they that I was a rabble-rouser, troublemaker, and there was no racism involved in the suspension of those children. The front page of the newspaper today said, no, Pastor D's not crazy. They, in fact, have suspended thousands of children. Some of them were given criminal records. And I'm emotional about it for this reason. They're talking about let's move forward solutions. What about the thousands of children that were put out of school? Where is their reconciliation? We got to go back, look at the records, find children and families who were unjustly treated, compensate them, and punish the people responsible, because that was not an accident, that was by design. That's what's wrong with the system. It is still racist and unjust. What is good, I'm a proud product of P.S. DuPont High School, and I see some folks in High and Howard in here. But at the time that I came up in P.S., Howard High School, I went to P.S., I used to be jealous of Negroes that went to Howard. All you heard was black doctors and black lawyers and black this and Howard this and that. They made me sick with it, and I was proud. We produced in Wilmington, from P.S., Wilmington High, and Howard, some of the best and brightest African American and white low-income individuals in America. The problem is not with the location of the schools, it's the resources that Jay talked about. Follow the money and you'll follow the dream. So what's good is we still have an opportunity, people. We can go back to what works and see to it that our children have a brighter future than the ones of today.
Was Howard a free school or was it the only school?
Howard, we beat y'all in 75.
But was it the free school or the only school?
It was one of the only schools.
Well, you know, the governor was asked a question during one of the debates out at the University of Delaware about the crime problem in Wilmington. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, folks. And his response was, we gave the city of Wilmington some state police, and we gave them some community centers. What a condescending attitude from our governor, who comes in this city and give us chicken wings and orange sodas every time he runs, and that's all we get from him. And people parade those folks around, but yet our city becomes the most dangerous. Our kids are becoming the most uneducated. They can't compete at anything because they're illiterate all the time. The jails are full of folks who don't have no education. And then people start talking politics. We have a Democratic governor who does nothing. And we allow these folks to operate, keep talking about politics. I'm a lifelong Democrat. And I don't give a rat's behind about the Democratic Party and some of the things they do right now. Because when Mike Castle and others were in there, I used to go across the board, because it's not about the party, it's about the person. Because if you look at the demographics of the city, the Democratic Party's been running everything, every state. And look at the problems we have. What a shame on Governor Marquette.
Absolutely.
And anybody who supports that nonsense we talk about.
Journal, I'll try to pick up. I found it very disconcerting when I was looking at third graders, and I found that two of the schools in the inner city that 45% and 42% of these two schools were suspended And that's the percentage. In third grade.
45%.
Third grade.
Third grade.
You want me to say the school's name? Albert Palmer.
Oh.
And Stubbs. And I looked at the schools that where you would find the inner city children going, and those two really have horrendous records. It comes from that zero tolerance, and I think there needs to be some reason. And it all goes back to accountability. You need to have accountability of the charter school. If they don't perform, that's what a charter school should be about. You close it. All right?
Exactly.
The public schools, you have to do quicker intervention. You don't wait 5 years, 10 years like it Stubbs. So you have it so bad, you have one group after another failing. It has to be much more timely. And we do have models. We have models that we can go to and say, these schools are working. They are working. Let's bring those practices in. So that's the solution rather than just talking about the problem.
Again, I just want to talk, locally in the community. You're talking about issues that affect you within your community. It's a matter of setting priorities, and we believe that the families, empowered by having to be able to move the funds to the school that they feel is the best school for their child, for the best education experience, are going to participate in setting and solving those priorities. And the priorities in Wilmington are different than the priorities in Rehoboth and other places. And you've got one central group that's trying to tell you what the answer needs to be. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Hackett and I met here on Van Buren and 6th Street at the Lutheran Center about a month ago, and there was at that weekend, there was 2 teens shot.
Quiet back there.
There was 2, thank you. There was 2 teens shot and killed in that street. The next week.
Sorry, baby, making the noise. Now you're making it.
Yes, it's my baby, so you guys have to calm down.
Mr. Hosley, repeat what you're saying, because we didn't hear you.
The next week, it was in the News Journal that the state has dedicated itself to a Chinese language program. Now, I got to tell you, those are the people who are setting your priorities. Those are the people who are establishing the public schools, and those are the people who are saying we got a Chinese language program, and we got the problem that you just talked about on the street. And just the one weekend, 2 were killed. There seems to be a disconnect there. And we really think that if you had the opportunity to take and be at that table with some power because you've got the funds with it, that those local issues would be resolved. And if they couldn't be resolved in the public schools, I would hope they've been resolved a long time before now.
Empower the parents.
Okay, we have one more comment on this, and we got some audience questions.
Well, I want to, one, I'm not going to sit here and let somebody just indict Palmer, because the fact of the matter is Palmer, on the rating scale, is a superior school. Okay, so it has made the progress it needs to make. It is rated superior, which is the state's highest rating. Second, we have indicted a full-scale indictment of race to the top, and for the first time in a long time, Stubbs met annual yearly progress and continues to move forward under new leadership. So we're just not going to throw away the towel. And as far as transparency, we need to be transparent and find out who's being paid tonight,
Exactly.
who's being paid before tonight,
Exactly.
to sell this whole choice concept. And at the end of the day, who's going to be the beneficiary of the so-called new movement? And if you succeed, God bless you. The president is a proponent of charter school. The president is a proponent of choice school, and I disagree with you. What I don't know if we will prevail or not, but I guarantee you one thing: bring this on, take it to the state legislature, get it adopted, and then let's let the judge decide, because it's not going to change, and we're going to sit by and put up the destiny of our children in the hands of other people without a fight.
People today are doing a wonderful job.
Let's get to the audience.
Well, this is on what Jay said, and her input. Well, why do you ask us to participate?
Order.
Okay.
You got to teach the young folks order. If we can't do it, they not do it.
Okay.
You know,
can't sit here because there's some information about choice that these people need to hear.
We're gonna get to it. We gotta do it in an orderly fashion.
But they need to hear it now as a basic. They don't know. Choice in these books is by state, but granted, it's federal required. You cannot do choice unless you go by federal guidelines. There are federal guidelines to go by choice. They have made their choice, but it's according to government rules. It's under federal guidelines and federal guidelines only. In this book, under legal development, it tells you where people have appealed and try not to do it, and how the Supreme Court knocked them down. So I want everybody to know that it's not just state by state choice, it's the federal government. And you need to get that document on choice. The government sets these rules and regulations in place, not the state.
Thank you. One question from the audience. How are the costs per child determined? Like the 10,000, how is that determined? Anybody? Let's answer it. Nobody want to answer the audience question?
We don't know.
Okay, they don't know.
Which cost are you talking about?
Repeat the
It just
question.
says
Somebody said something about 10,000 per child.
child. How is that number determined? Anybody?
It's there are two formulas. One is the amount of money the state pays per child, and the other is based on the district's tax rate, based on the property assessment and the tax rate within the local district, which is why you have 4 different tax rates in the city of Wilmington, because you have 4 different school districts. And that's why you have 4 different referendums, so that there's a local amount which is determined by your school taxes, and then there's a state amount which is determined by the number of children enrolled in the school, in that particular school, during the month of September of every school year.
Next question from our audience. Was education system is not that bad, this person says. If your child is not learning, at what point do you hold parents more accountable?
At the very beginning.
Well, the challenge with that is, you miseducated me as a parent. And not only that, I got put out as prematurely. And so I really don't want to interact with the school. I don't want to be involved with the school. I'm only going to go when there's a problem, because the documents you put in front of me and the things you say to me, I really don't understand, but I can't tell anybody that. And then you want me to be able to be the primary resource for my child, but you're not helping me. Which is why parenting classes, advocates, and folks to intervene on behalf and with parents is so very important. So you want to talk about what we can do locally? What happens when those of us who are still advocating don't do it anymore, like I'm getting ready to not do anymore? And you've got no structure in place to provide those resources. So we need to provide assistance and education to our parents so that they can assist and help in a real way with their children. If we miseducate them, that's our fault. It's not their fault. So what I do at Hilltop, what we do at Hilltop every day, we work with the children, we work with the parents, and as a team, they are very effective. And you can look at our numbers, the number of children on the honor roll, and the ones who are succeeding, and it's directly related to early childhood education, it's directly related to parent education, parent involvement, and it's directly related to positive interaction with the children, and the children have access to people who they think really care about it. It's a combination of all those things.
That's what the school system should be about anyway.
The parents want to be, I think parents get a bad rap. a lot of times. Because the society itself is predispositioned to destroy the parents, and these institutions are predispositioned to destroy the child. So both are victims. Now, parents are accountable from the beginning. However, we got to begin to lift up. There are a lot of great parents in Delaware, single moms and such, doing a lot of great work and having a lot of success. But we don't lift them up. We don't front page them. We front page the failures. If we begin to highlight and model some of the successes of a lot of the parents that are doing great things in this state, I'm talking about grandmothers that are going to college graduations with their grandkids, then you're going to see more people want to model that behavior. We start needing to recognize and highlight them the way we highlight achievements in other areas of the state. That would be a solution to motivating the parents. But the main thing they need are resources. If a mom don't have a job, if she does not have access to resources, then again. So at the end of the day, to Jay's point earlier, I'm not one way or another on choice, and I certainly support President Barack Obama. But when she highlighted schools, Red Clay got trashed. Yet Red Clay was the only district where the superintendent walked the streets of Wilmington to find out who was effective with helping the children in Red Clay. Came and got organizations, went in, developed a parent program, developed a mentoring program, developed University of Delaware students to the extent where I took Dr. Bill Cosby there to see it. So I'm saying there are good and bad optional credits, and that's what I meant about mis and disinformation. We need to be very careful how we listen to information. And finally, to Sister's point, if the federal government mandates something, oftentimes, the dance has already started. You just dressed up with no party to go to. It's already going down.
All right, this is a comment from the audience. Simply put, the money follows the child. Choice allows the parents specifically and the communities collectively to develop schools that can identify with minority children, have an investment in minority children, and care about their future. That was just a comment. Okay, Mr. Curtis.
Well, you know, I heard someone made mention of Albert Palmer School in South Bridge. You know, it is a superior school, make no mistake about it. But they have a lot of kids that are being suspended for dropping a pencil on the ground. So you have a lot of teachers that don't have any experience in dealing with multicultures. It's a huge problem. Back in 2005, we have intervention specialists in this school. We did get a handle on the disciplinary problem. Dr. Wise and them, for whatever reason, mismanaged a whole lot of money. $20 million. One no more intervention specialists in the school. The school went right back to failing in terms of discipline. So we have a huge problem. We have community people in the school. When they took that money and mismanaged that money, some of us still went to that school every day and didn't get a dime from anybody. All that stuff is for naught because nobody's advocating. You got one African American, I'm going to go right there, and I don't like to interject race, but it's real. George Evans had to sue to get back on the school board, just to represent our children. That's a huge, huge problem in the state.
With everything I've heard, everybody's input, and we appreciate everybody being here, we still have a massive issue with our babies being murdered in the street on a weekly basis because they can't read. So with all the political statements being made here, my vision for which we set out upon was that we need to go back to the basics. And I'm not talking about reentry or trying to fix the problem as it is late game, but for the future. So if there is a viable option, and by the way, I'm not being paid by nobody to bring this up. I'm the one who researched choice. Not because I'm politically attached to anybody. I don't get paid by nobody to do what I do. So I looked at the fact that our babies are being murdered. And we're all watching this. This is not a political game here. So if it's not working, let's try something different. There's no harm in trying something different. And yes, I'm a product of the public school system. I graduated from P.S. DuPont. But the teachers who taught me how to read, my mother was insane, cared about us a very long time ago. We were taught in our local school right in our neighborhood by people who cared about us. So I don't know where the ball got lost. And I don't want to make a big speech. But I just want to say, hold on, y'all. Maybe we should try something different. You didn't talk about how many thousands has been misappropriated by this person. 100 million came in here for a race to the top. Where it's going to go, I don't know. All I know is we need to try something different. Now, everybody ain't going to be on the board with that because some people are being paid. Okay, some people are being paid. I'm not politically attaching nobody. So I can stand here and say to you, we have to objectively look at something different. And we got to look outside of Delaware because we are so brainwashed in the condition that we live in here that how can we be complacent? How can we be so complacent with these babies dying and we're going to have a political argument amongst you?
We developed Celeb. Celeb is a faith model, but it's not a Christian model. Developed from a concept I developed by working with Brothers United, Fort Bell, Philadelphia, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and visiting 1,600 schools in the country without the Bill Cosby. It's cognitive emotional learning in the school building, five-week process with children who are predisposed to be suspended. We say to the school district, rather than suspend them, give them to us for 5 weeks. They go for 5 weeks. Our director, stand-up, Ebony Madre, is a master behavioral modification specialist. She works in the Chester Upland School District. She lives in Wilmington. She should be right here in Delaware School helping our children. So I went to her and asked her to become the director. We developed a model. We went into the Red Clay School District. 60, Katie, out of your group, how many? 65? In fact, the day we went into school, Katie was chasing the principal out, getting ready to get a murder charge. But she's on Channel 6 on the super honor roll. And so that's the model. That our facilitators and counselors are ordinary people. They're not education specialists. They go through a training process, and we were very, very successful with the Red Clay Consolidated School District. But to my point, they defunded it. I don't know why. It was
too much success.
That's what I meant by design.
Here we go.
Successful. Now, one of the little girls who was 11 years old, who was in the Celeb group while we were at AI Middle School, she normally would get in trouble and fight people. They found her father floating face down in the Brandywine. She's 11 years old. We have a language I developed called Celeb language, like if you feel bad, you're in your basement, you need to tell somebody in your basement instead of cussing at them. She began to relate to teachers and adults that she was in the basement, meaning that she wanted to hurt herself. They were able to call Ebony Madre on a Saturday morning at home to find out what this child was talking about, and a potential suicide was prevented because she loved her father and she was hurting and she didn't know how to tell anybody. So that's how important programs like this are. But we got these house Negroes who have the governor's ear, who are the same usual suspects in Wilmington, who said, "Oh, you let Pastor D in there," and that's ridiculous. That's and sister is absolutely right, But I fight for one reason and one reason only. When I grew up in the Riverside Projects, my grandmama had a washing machine that made noise. It had something that go da 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 all night. And I'd be, "Grandma, what's that? What is that?" She said, "That's the agitator, boy." I said, "Well, break it because it's keeping me up." And she said, "Without the agitator, the clothes don't get clean." I said, "What it do?" She said, "It make the clothes bump up against each other." Well, when I came home from prison, I decided for now and the rest of my life, I'm going to be an agitator.
I just want to go back to the Elder Palmer. What I was noting was the suspensions, and absolutely right that school has made some very good strides. And one reason is that they have multiple helps and interventions that are going on with that school. So again, it's doing the right thing for the students, and they are doing a good job. So I wanted to clarify that my note was only about
Just to go back on the sister's comment, you're right, we gotta start with the young ones. We have so many challenges to be able to do, but the young people are not learning that K to 3. We're just,
That's it.
they're just moving forward with us. There's a lot,
Our
you know,
boys are not learning.
our young men, they all
Our
be on
boys.
medicine, give them all Adderall, give them all Ritalin, sit them down, focus them, they'll be fine. It doesn't work. You know, we still have a dropout rate of 16. Why is that? You can't get that changed. But it's where you pick your energy. And I think if we're gonna pick energy, we really need to start with the youngest to put the energy in there.
Exactly.
And keep doing programs like Pastor D has and Jay has and everybody else. That's where we gotta be able to start.
Okay, audience.
Yeah, I just have a question. I think solutions is the only way to go here, because we all know what the problems are. But I would just ask Pastor D, was your program evaluated?
We evaluated, one of the administrators, Loretta Morvillo was one of our staff persons.
I would just like to speak to the problem that we're having about that, and to me, it's part of the whole shut it down system. I'm very interested in some of the things the doctor's saying, because I have an interest in statistics and I'm used to looking at results. And because of that, I want to put together a report that shows the success that we have with the program. We know it's successful. The people directly involved with it know it was successful. But I'm trying to get the information. And in the beginning, we were told, oh, it won't be any problem. Just give me a computer printout. We'll be able to see out of these 65 children, how many of them got suspended this year compared to before you got here. I cannot get the paperwork. We have talked to people.
What happened was
we have
little
sent
black
emails.
girls were on the front page of the newspaper snatching the tracks out of each other's hair. And the governor and Lillian Lowry, they called me down to Dover, and they had read what Pastor D's supposed to be, the hip hop, the kids listen to him. Can you put something together for the school? I said, yeah, but I won't do it temporarily. We made an agreement. If I succeed, we get programs for all of the schools, but do not hire your traditional people. Hire real outreach workers. There's some people sitting out here, if you take those lucrative salaries and pay them, they can go into that school system and they'll be going to class and throwing weed out the window. They'd be like, man, that's Miss Louisville. I ain't getting out of there. So, no, for real. So we took Loretta Morvillo. We took Ebony Matre. We took another young lady who was a suicide survivor. Katie is now a facilitator. She crawled into a crowd of 30-some young women who were beating a young girl to death, dragged her to safety, called adults, and got that young girl safe. And she used to be one of the biggest hell raisers in the school. So what I'm saying is, I don't know what happened. Only I know the people that whispered. Because it's hard to be a Stephen Fetchit, and we don't know who you are. You understand what I'm saying? So I know what happened, but you can't prove, but I'll tell you this, Pastor D is not the exception. I'm the rule. Norman Oliver's program from North Enterprises, it was good. Kirk Lacey, when we were on the Hope Commission, this man is mad. He do his doggone thing. But Josie Roy back there, from out Newcastle Ave. Them thugs cold-blooded scared of Josie. She got young people working with her, a program not receiving a dime. They need to stop paying these people who can't do anything and allow us to get a job.
1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry, I get passionate because it's unfortunate.
First, I want to ask you. You understand? I'm from a different country. I'm from Jamaica. But so with American stuff, one thing my pastor was saying, the thing I do, you guys were talking about resources, right? I was saying, why is it like if somebody come from prison, it's hard for them to get a job? Right? It's hard to get a job. That's one of the resources. It's hard to get a job. Even if they get the job, they stay there like for less, like the longest they might stay for is like 6 months. This is the thing I don't understand. I want to find out why. Because why you guys don't give second chances?
Exactly.
I'll answer that.
I'm from the show.
Because if you look at the house, if you look at the
I might answer that.
If you look at
I'm gonna answer that. Okay, I'm a living example of that. I'm Delaware has a concrete ceiling called policies, called you can't be a barber, you can't be a beautician, you can't drive a taxi, you can't work in a school, you can't teach. All these, it's like 3 pages of jobs you cannot have in Delaware with a felony. Mayor, whatever his name is, just did the ban the box.
Yeah.
After 2 years, because he's going out.
But it's a two.
It's a step in the door. So, because they make more money, he's going back to jail. I work more in prison.
But the next thing was, if you guys stop that, right? No, what I know.
Choice.
No, but as you guys talk about resources, remember saying, if I can't eat, nobody can't eat, then you have to cut it.
That's how we look at it. But the people who hold the money say we're gonna make it off of
Yeah,
the garbage.
can I answer his question accurately? There are licensed barbers, and I understand you, I'm a formerly incarcerated person, I don't know if you know that. 12 and a half years, 6.5 on death row, 23.5 hours a day in one cell, and a lot of these brothers in this room know. If anybody in here is the poster boy of rehabilitation, I'm in. I went back and forth, did 5 robberies, 5 kidnapped, 1 murder. So listen to me. You gotta break and challenge the stereotypes. It's not so much the system. We got licensed barbers that are formerly incarcerated people. We got formerly incarcerated people that do a lot of things. What we need is opportunity. That opportunity, I go to Section 8 with people. I had to go all the way to Washington, D.C. and get President Obama's wife to get me this from the Justice Department, because when people get arrested and get a felony in Section 8, they're being put out of public housing. Listen to me. Put out of public housing. According to this, does that say the President of the United States feels that people should have a second chance, and the only reason they should be put out of HUD housing, no matter what the local policies are, the only reason is production of methamphetamine or sex offense. Do you know how many people have been put out of HUD housing and this and so, but nobody's fighting them on this. You understand? And that's why people will tell you, stay away from Pastor D, stay away from J Street, stay away from this person. I say, guys like him in the back, others who are in here, I saw Wolfie somewhere, that big fella there, Mr. Foot's right there. Man, there's some formerly incarcerated people in this city. Just demand that the new mayor and the current governor take our feet off the unemployment rolls and put our hands to work. That's why I became a pastor. That's why I ran for mayor. And I will not stop trying to achieve until all of us believe we can do anything we want to do.
2 points right quick, and then I go to, people go to jail. You know, until the state legislature, with both the Senate and the House, start looking at the realities of real reentry, not just chatter. With the governor's IADAT program, it's all a bunch of talk, because what they're asking communities to do, or community-based organizations to do, to address a serious problem with no money. So it's destined to fail, number one. Number two, I'm glad that, you know, all you guys came out, because this is a very serious discussion. We will be continuing this discussion on the 15th at the Muslim Center from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So we want the same groundswell of support to come, because we're going to be talking about education and empowering the parents to be teachers as well. So it's a very important forum on this Saturday.
Mr. Moderator, first of all, I thought that the questions that we put on the cards were the ones that were going to be answered or asked, because I put a question there, but I see it got kind of out of order.
What's your question?
Now, I was part of helping Pastor D with the Celeb program. I played a major role in with him and some of his people at the church. Now, my question is, the Celeb program, which was a success, there was an A to Z tutoring program that was defunded also in the Christiana School District. Now the parents, half of them don't even know where to go, because their children will need the tutoring, and they said they took the money to do something else, whatever they decided to do with the money. So now we have students and parents who need tutoring that don't even know that that program's not there. My question is, if they're defunding all these programs that is helping our children, what are we going to do as a community to stand up and stop that? Because these are programs that help our children, that our children need, And your program was very, very successful, and I know this young lady, and I know where she came from.